Okay. Let's go back and talk a little bit more about philanthropy, because that is, I think, the way you and Nancy have approached philanthropy. Number one, it has a major impact, as you said, on the urban environment here in Houston, and hence on, frankly, real estate development opportunities, as we've seen right around here. But also, I think, is reflective of kind of a new generation of philanthropy that we are seeing all over the country. You and Nancy have signed the Giving Pledge, so you will be making major philanthropic investments, and you're particularly focused on Houston. So you will be making major philanthropic investments in Houston for many years to come. Could you talk a little, but unlike traditional philanthropy, it does seem to me, and I can tell you this as the director of the Kinder Institute, it does seem to me that coming from business, you are focused on a return on your investment for your philanthropy. Believe me, every time we ever have a conversation, I learn this. So can you talk a little bit about what that philosophy looks like, how you approach philanthropy, and how that may differ from the way older philanthropic institutions may approach things?
Certainly. I think we set out to really analyze what we want to do, and Nancy deserves all the credit here. I'm a figurehead, and she's really the one that runs the Kinder Foundation.
She's shaking her head.
But what we wanted to do, first of all, we decided we wanted to concentrate most of our giving in Houston. This is where we've been successful. It's a great city for us, and we think there's lots of opportunities for philanthropy right here. So we wanted to concentrate here. Then we wanted to be as transformational as possible. We wanted to take on projects that we thought probably would not get done, or not get done in the way we thought they should be, if they didn't have the impetus of a gift or participation from us. And then we decided to take a rifle shot approach, not a shotgun approach. And so we decided on 3 areas to concentrate on, and that's education, urban green space, and quality of life. And that's what we've tried to do. And we've tried to utilize experts in those fields to help us, and tried to be transformational in the sense of getting something done that otherwise wouldn't be done. And we believe in staying involved, and I think this is very typical.
Yes, I know.
We go to these we go to these Giving Pledge meetings, and it's amazing how many people have the same mindset in completely different areas than we are. But I think the modern philanthropist wants to be involved, get a return on the investment, as opposed to just giving money to his alma mater and having a building named after him.
Let's go through some of these philanthropic efforts one by one to talk a little bit about how this has manifested itself. And if we could put why don't we put the Discovery Green pictures back up again on the screen? And I think, Susan, there's 2 of them. So if we can put those back up. Let's talk a little. This is the long view. Let's sit with that for a minute. So this is right outside this building. The Hilton is there on the left. The big apartment building is right in the front. This is being shot from the view of the George R. Brown Convention Center, and of course the Marriott is under construction on the other side of the green. Talk a little bit about how you approached this project, you and Nancy, because you're going to say it was Nancy who did this, and then she's going to shake her head again. But how did you approach this project? How did you view this as being transformational? And how do you think that your philanthropy allowed something to happen that otherwise wouldn't have happened?
Well, in this particular case, as I said earlier, this was a dying several block area, cut up, a little park, then some parking lots. Some was city owned, some was privately owned. And Bill White, who was the mayor at the time, said, could we get together and talk about this? And there were 4 foundations in the room, and we all kind of went around and said, yes, we would put some money up into buying the land and improving it. We'd have to raise other money, thank goodness, from a lot of people around town. And the other directors of the foundation said, well, we'll do this if Nancy Kinder will be chairman of it. And so she did, and this started a long odyssey. But eventually, with a lot of help from a lot of people, we arrived at what I think is really an urban jewel. Much more than I thought it would be in the beginning. We've had many more visitors than we thought. We have several hundred free events all year. We have a very successful restaurant that goes a long way toward paying the upkeep. But the one really important thing from a legal and business standpoint we did was we said we would not put this together if we didn't have a long-term agreement with the local increment TERS, as we call them.
The tax increment
tax
zone.
increment zone, to support this over an extended period of time. The fear of private money in urban green space development is that you get into this, you put your money up, everything looks great, and then a subsequent administration decides, what the hell, we don't need that, you know. They don't water it, they don't take care of it, and pretty soon you've got, you're back to an urban derelict space again. So that was our condition going in. We were able to work out a written agreement through the city, approved by the city council, for this. And we've done the same thing on Buffalo Bayou on an even larger scale. So this, I think, is, and Herman Park, which we've been only peripherally involved in, they've done a lot of the same things in working with the city. So I think that the trend line here on philanthropy in major cities is going to be public-private partnerships with the private sector doing things that the public will not or cannot put the money up for, but the public has got to commit itself through its government instruments
for the long term.
For the long term.
Which is what happened in the case of Discovery Green.
That's right.
Discovery Green hosts about, you said several hundred, about 600 events a year. Over 1 million people a year go there. And I don't remember the exact number for the total cost of building Discovery Green. You put in 50, I believe. But the private real estate investment that's been driven by Discovery Green all around it, by the time it's all built out, and you see a lot of it under construction, it's going to be well over $1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion. Let's go on and talk about a couple of the other major gifts and the impact they have had. Let's begin by talking about the Buffalo Bayou Partnership. We can move on to that slide, Susan. Now, this is an extraordinary urban project. And I have to tell you, so I am the director of the Kinder Institute. I had a phone call the other day with Mr. Kinder, and I went home and I went jogging along the Kinder footpath. And so I realized I really do live in a Kinder world now. The Kinder footpath right at Buffalo Bayou. And next month, the actual Buffalo Bayou Park will be opening up. Could you talk a little bit about maybe the lessons you learned from Discovery Green, how you took the same approach to the Buffalo Bayou Partnership, and maybe talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bayou Park, and we're going to rely on Susan to move the slide along at the appropriate moment. Go ahead.
Well, basically the same concept. This slide she's got up now is tremendous. We have a large dog park and a small dog park. And believe me, if you get in there with 100 dogs, you're going to get wet, even if you're standing on the sidelines. This was, again, a part of the city. It's a strip about 3 miles long, beginning at the west end of downtown, running out to Shepherd Drive. And it varies in width, but basically, generally, a quarter of a mile or so in width. That was tremendously, it was really a disaster. I used to run there, and you never knew what was around the next turn, whether it was a syringe or a beer bottle or whatever. Working with the Buffalo Bayou Partnership, that's done a lot of good work elsewhere on the bayou as well as here, we were able to put together an agreement involving the Buffalo Bayou Partnership, our foundation. We made the catalyst gift, the city, the flood control, and the county. The total cost of the project just in contributed dollars is around $55 million, but much more than that if you count the dredging and the government work that's gone in that was contributed as part of the deal. Once again, we refused to do it until we had a long-term agreement with the tax increment zone. I think it's 40 years long on this one, I think, and it starts at $2 million a year and escalates by 2% a year. We have our own security force, we have our own patrols, we have our own cleanup people, and what we want, Nancy and I have told everybody involved, it's easy, maybe not easy, but it's glamorous to put together a project like this. But what is important is 2 years from now, people have got to be just as pleased when they're out there running or biking. We have separate trails.
As on day one.
That's right. Yeah. And that's our goal, to make this a long-term part of the city. It's too grandiose to say this, but I will anyway. It's, you know, it could be something like our Central Park.
Yes, clearly, it is a transformational project. I was out running along probably Kinder footpath on the day the dog park opened, and there were so many dogs trying to get into the dog park, I literally had to stop, turn around, and run the other way. I couldn't get past all the dogs in the dog park the day that the dog park opened. Now, in addition to the Buffalo Bayou partnership gift, you also made a gift for the Bayou Greenways generally, which was matched by other private donations as well as a significant contribution by Houston voters. Truly a public-private partnership. If you could talk, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the big picture Bayou Greenway plan and what that's going to look like when it's going to look like this apparently, right? When it's all built out. Talk a little bit about how you came to want to do this, what it consists of, and again, how you structured the deal.
Well, this is, to me, this is just a fantastic development. And the city passed a bond issue authorizing a little over $100 million toward it. There were several bond issues on the voters' ballot that year, and this passed by the largest majority, so people were very intrigued and enthusiastic about it. And it left the private sector, the Parks Commission, with the ability or the need to raise over $100 million, a little
the
more
Houston
than
Parks
matching
Board.
The Houston Parks Board.
Which is a private fundraising entity that's done a fabulous job.
And again, we made the catalyst gift there. Believe me, we've had lots of help from lots of other people here. But what this will do is it will create eventually 150 miles of bicycle and walking trails throughout Houston. In fact, it's said that about 2/3 of all the people in Houston will live within a mile of one of these trails. So 150 miles of trails is just, and they'll all be interconnected, is really nothing short of miraculous. You know, Houston, we don't have mountains, we don't have spectacular beaches, but we have a wonderful ability to grow things. We're green, we're very a climate that really lends itself to growing things and to developing projects just like this. And I think this Greenways project is really transformational for the whole metropolitan area.
You know what I'm struck by, and I think this is particularly relevant to the ULI crowd, I'd like you to address it a little bit more. Not only the transformational nature of these gifts, but the attention paid to they're transactional in nature. The attention paid to the transaction in all three of these cases, in a certain way, essentially a real estate transaction between philanthropic interests and the city, to make sure that you get out in the end of what you intended to get out of that. Can you talk a little bit more about that approach to philanthropy and how that ensures that as the philanthropist you are getting out of it for the benefit of the community what you're looking for?
Well, I think simply put, every project needs to have sustainability and be able to stand on its own feet. You can't expect any philanthropist to be there forever, and I don't think you want a philanthropist to be there forever, because that shows that you really haven't been able to draw the whole community into the project. And so that's why I think this whole idea of sustainability is so important. And frankly, to do that, you have to have partnerships with a public entity that is going to guarantee or be a source of funds for maintenance of these projects. Now, that said, you don't necessarily want the public entity to be the actual party doing the maintenance. You want them to put the money up, and you want a motivated private partnership like Buffalo Bayou Partnership to actually do the day-to-day maintenance. They will take, we believe, a more constructive, better approach to maintenance than it would be if you were just using a public entity to do your maintenance. So it's very difficult to put together, but once they put together, we think they work very well. Good.